Have you ever felt like you just see the world a little differently? Or maybe someone's called you an overthinker? Well, what if I told you those things aren't flaws? What if they're actually signs that you're way smarter than you give yourself credit for? Let's get into what psychology says about the real, hidden signs of a sharp mind.
What if the true signs of high intelligence
have absolutely nothing to do with what they taught us in school?
Forget about perfect grades and throw out those standardized IQ tests. Because real intelligence often shows up in these small, subtle behaviors you probably don't even notice you're doing. So if these feel familiar, you might be in for a surprise about how your mind really works. You know, most people picture smart in really obvious ways, like the person with the fastest answers, the straight-A student, the impressive resume. But psychology is showing us something, well, something completely different. It turns out real intelligence often hides in these quiet, almost invisible habits. So we're going to go through 8 signs that you're smarter than you think, even if you've never felt highly intelligent. See how many of these sound like you.
All right, sign number 1. The smartest people in the room, they're not always the first ones to talk.
See, other people might see it as shyness or hesitation, but what's actually happening is some serious, deep cognitive processing. You observe first, you process all the information, and only then do you respond with intention. Your brain is basically running a quality check before anything comes out, leading to much better insights.
Okay, on to number 2. Smart minds have one thing in common. They rarely, if ever, accept things at face value.
Does this sound familiar? You're constantly questioning things. Social norms, advice people give you, assumptions everyone else takes for granted, even your own beliefs. And it's not because you're trying to be difficult. It's because your brain is naturally wired to search for patterns and, what's actually true. And there's a cool psychological term for this. It's called cognitive reflection. It's basically the ability to hit pause on your first instinct and just think deeper. It's a hallmark of a powerful intellect.
Have you ever left a social gathering feeling completely wiped out? If shallow, small-talk conversations just drain your battery, it's probably not just introversion. There's something else going on.
Here's why. Intelligent minds crave depth, meaning, and stimulation. When a conversation just stays on the surface, your brain feels totally underused. And weirdly, that makes it tired. So you might find you prefer fewer conversations as long as they're the meaningful ones.
Okay, let's talk about overthinking. It gets such a bad reputation, doesn't it? But there is a massive difference between anxious, circular worrying and what we could call analytical, productive thinking.
So if your mind is always exploring different outcomes, running through scenarios, connecting ideas that seem unrelated, that's not a weakness. That is complex cognition in action. Your brain is literally designed to anticipate problems and solve them, even if it feels a little overwhelming sometimes.
Sign number 5, and this might surprise some people. Highly intelligent people often genuinely need their solitude.
And look, it's not because they dislike people, it's because their minds need space to recharge and process everything. It's in those quiet moments when you're alone that ideas finally connect, your thoughts settle, and creativity just appears. For a deep mind, solitude isn't loneliness, it's mental recovery.
All right, number 6 is one of the biggest signs of intelligence there is, and it's a bit of a paradox. It's being keenly aware of how much you don't know.
You recognize there's always more to learn. You accept that you might be wrong sometimes. It's called intellectual humility. Ironically, it's often the less aware people who are the most overconfident. That's a real thing called the Dunning-Kruger effect. Smart minds question themselves, and that's exactly what keeps them growing.
Coming in at number 7, you have a knack for noticing the little things, the small details that just fly right by most people.
You're the one who picks up on a tiny change in someone's tone of voice. You see the subtle body language shifts. You spot small inconsistencies in a story. Your brain is just constantly scanning the world for meaning and connection, which is a huge sign of both intellectual and emotional intelligence.
And finally, our 8th sign. This one might feel very personal to a lot of you. It's that feeling, maybe your whole life, of just being slightly out of sync with everyone else.
And it's not about feeling better than anyone. And it's definitely not about feeling worse. It's just different. Your interests are different, your sense of humor might be different, your whole way of thinking is different. And yeah, that can feel isolating sometimes, but it's often a sign that your mind is just operating on a deeper level than average.
So, after all that, let's just take a step back and think about what this really means.
Intelligence doesn't always show up with a loud bang. Sometimes it looks like overthinking. Sometimes it looks like needing to be alone. Sometimes it just looks like quiet observation.
So, if you saw yourself in a few of these signs, please know, you're not strange. Your mind simply works in a deeper, more complex way. And once you really understand that, you can start using it to your advantage. I'm going to leave you with this last thought. The smartest people often have no idea how smart they are. And that's because a deep mind is built to see the complexity in things, where others might only see simplicity. If this whole thing felt uncomfortably accurate, then this channel was made for minds just like yours. Welcome to Brain Code.